We have some bad news here for Hillary Clinton in the wake of her non-indictment as a result of the email scandal. Quote, 56% of Americans disagree with FBI Director James Comey's recommendation to clear Hillary Clinton of any wrongdoing for her email practices as Secretary of State, according to an ABC Washington Post poll released on Monday. Unsurprisingly, Republicans are united in their stance on the issue. 88% of those polled disagree with Comey's recommendation not to charge Clinton with a crime. But perhaps a less anticipated finding of the poll is that Democrats aren't completely unified in their perception of the issue. While 6 in 10 Democrats polled agree with Comey's recommendation, a significant portion, 31%, disagree with it. Think about that. That's devastating. We're going into a general election. And in a general election, the one thing you're supposed to be able to rely on is that all the people who have a D in front of their name are going to vote for the Democratic candidate. So everything else, hey, that's the thing that's up in the air. Those are the question marks. Are we going to get independents? Are we going to get moderates? Are we going to get people who were unaffiliated and it's their first election or whatever the case is? Those are the things that people think, well, that'll decide the election. It's supposed to be a given that the people who call themselves Democrats, who are basically party loyalists, are like, well, of course I like my candidate. Of course, this is the person who I want to line up behind. What this poll shows us is that 31% of Democrats, 31%, are saying, I think she should have been indicted over the email scandal because of how she handled classified information. The Democratic establishment thought they were so smart. They thought they were geniuses. Let's continue the status quo. Let's continue business as usual. Let's run the most sellout candidate ever who will represent no change. At the very best, just continues what Obama is doing. At worst, is going to go further to the right on the spectrum than Obama. Let's run that person at a time when Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump had roaring campaigns with fierce, ferocious populist rhetoric. They're like, let's run the person who represents Washington and the establishment. And what could go wrong? This could go wrong. And I love when people respond with, yeah, but she won the primary anyway, so she's obviously more popular. This is what Barney Frank says. No, you idiots. She's coasted off of her name recognition and her celebrity status. So when you're First Lady, when you're Secretary of State, when you ran for president the last time around and you were the favorite the last time around, your name recognition is so incredibly high that you just handed over a tremendous number of the votes for people who are Democrats, but they don't follow politics all that closely, but they'll still vote in the primary. Whereas Bernie Sanders, a nothing senator who very few people knew from Vermont, people had to learn who he was from the beginning. And he started with this massive disadvantage, and he almost fucking won. That doesn't show that Hillary Clinton is a strong candidate. That shows that she's a weak candidate. Her unfavorables are 56%. That's a record for a Democratic candidate going into a general election. Record high unfavorables. Now, Donald Trump also has record high unfavorables. We should mention that, and his are even higher. According to one poll, it was 70%. But he also doesn't have this shit. I mean, this is a majority of the country is saying you should have been indicted over what you did with classified information. Guys, people aren't stupid. I mean, if you saw James Comey's speech, we broke it down very specifically. And he said, oh, by the way, she lied about everything. About everything. We didn't have any classified information. Cut to James Comey. There were 110 different emails with classified information in it. Even 10 of them had top secret, which is the highest level of secrecy. Her email server, remember, server, not just, her personal email account. It's a server, her own server. It didn't even have security that was as good as Gmail. She's fucking Secretary of State, and she's in Russian territory sending emails about what's happening in Russia. And they said we wouldn't even know if they were able to spy on it. They were able to spy on it, but we don't even know if they did spy on it because we wouldn't even be able to track it because of how lax her security was. People look at that, 56% of the country looks at that and they're like, are you kidding me? Because then compare that with, because they say intent, intent, she didn't want to, be a Russian spy and she wasn't disloyal to America, which is the standard they literally set up. So what are we going to do? We can't find her guilty and we can't even indict her. Fucking Edward Snowden. You want to talk about intent? Edward Snowden is exiled from the United States of America when he specifically leaked information because he said this is unconstitutional for people not to know it. They have a right to know what the government is doing here. So his intent wasn't even just benign. It was good. His intent was, everybody needs to know this. Chelsea Manning, hey, I'm letting you know that your military is killing civilians in your name and then covering it up. Oh, I don't care if your intent was good. We're going to have to fucking lock you up. And they did. So people look at this. They go, look at the discrepancy. Look at the disparity. Somebody who's less powerful, somebody who's not in the Washington insider circles, they leak information even for good. The intent is good. No, you're either exiled or locked up. Hillary Clinton? Oh, the intent, we don't even care about intent. Whatever. So you broke some rules, you lied about absolutely everything. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hey, we're not going to bring charges, we're not going to indict you, nothing. So, sorry. Well, 56% of the country says that's bullshit. Because they're not stupid. They know Edward Snowden exists. They know Chelsea Manning exists. They can see exactly what she did. There are articles out that describe in detail what she did. So, and this is the person that the Democrats brilliantly think, let's run this person up against a fascist monster in Donald Trump. Ho, nothing could go wrong here. Right, nothing could go wrong. Except you have the establishment and the status quo, which people know is fucking them and has been fucking them, versus somebody who's portraying himself as an anti-establishment candidate. So, on framing alone, this is the first election in my lifetime where the Democratic candidate has been more pro-establishment. And the Republican candidate is more, at least theoretically, anti-establishment. That's a bad side of the equation to be on, man.